Picture this moment. A Viking warrior steps off his longship onto foreign shores. He speaks no local language. Within weeks, he is trading, negotiating, and building alliances. No apps, no textbooks, no grammar courses, just ancient methods that worked so well they conquered half the world. Welcome to Coffee English, where we uncover the secrets that truly transform how you learn. Today, we are diving into something extraordinary. The Vikings had language learning techniques that modern science now proves are more powerful than any app you have ever downloaded. This episode will completely change how you think about learning English. You will discover why your brain responds better to Viking methods than to modern technology. More importantly, you will learn exactly how to use these techniques starting today. The Vikings did not just learn languages. They mastered communication so deeply that they built trading networks across 4 continents. They did this using 3 simple principles that you can apply to English right now. Before we begin our journey into these ancient secrets, I want you to think about your own English learning story. What methods have you tried? What worked? What did not? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who is struggling with the same challenges you once faced. Archaeological evidence from across Scandinavia reveals something fascinating about Viking society. At trading sites from Norway to Russia, researchers have found artifacts showing Vikings interacted with dozens of different cultures and languages. These were not just simple exchanges. Vikings built complex trading networks that stretched from Greenland to Constantinople. Historical sources suggest that successful Viking traders and explorers developed practical language skills remarkably quickly. They had to communicate effectively for survival and success. How did they master this challenge without modern learning tools? The answer lies in 3 practical methods that match how your brain naturally learns best. These methods work because they connect language to real experiences and emotions. Modern research in neuroscience supports many of these ancient approaches. Vikings just understood these principles through experience and necessity. The first secret, story memory connection. Vikings discovered something that brain scientists only proved recently. Your mind remembers stories better than individual facts. Much better. When information comes wrapped in a story, your brain creates multiple memory pathways. This is why you remember movie plots from years ago, but forget vocabulary lists from last week. Here is how Vikings used this power. They did not learn isolated words. They learned entire stories in the target language. A Viking trader would listen to local merchants tell tales about their journeys, their families, their struggles. Through these stories, he absorbed not just vocabulary, but the rhythm, emotion, and culture of the language. This story memory connection works because it uses multiple areas of your brain at the same time. When you hear a story in English, your brain processes the words, creates pictures in your mind, feels emotions, and tries to guess what happens next. All these mental processes help each other, making the learning much stronger. Think about how you can use this for your English learning. Instead of trying to memorize lists of words, listen to English stories. Watch movies. Read books that interest you. Your brain will naturally pick up vocabulary, grammar, and expressions in the right situations, just like the Vikings did 1,000 years ago. The beauty of this method is its simplicity. Vikings would spend evenings around fires, listening to stories in different languages. They were not studying. They were entertainment themselves, and language learning happened naturally. You can do the same with English content that genuinely interests you. The second secret: ritual and repetition. Vikings understood something important about how memory works. They discovered that mixing language learning with physical activities and daily routines created stronger memories. Modern brain research confirms this idea. Physical movement and regular habits can improve memory by a huge amount. Viking language learning was never just sitting and studying. It was always connected to doing something. They learned trade words while actually buying and selling goods. They learned sailing terms while on ships. They picked up cultural phrases during meals and celebrations. Every word was connected to a real experience. This is why Viking warriors could remember complex battle commands in multiple languages under extreme stress. The words were not just in their heads. They were in their muscles, their breathing, their entire being. You can apply this Viking wisdom to your English learning immediately. Create daily rituals around English practice. Have your morning coffee while listening to English podcasts. Take evening walks while repeating English phrases aloud. Exercise while watching English videos. Your brain will link English to these positive, consistent experiences. The key is being consistent and physically active while learning. Vikings practiced their language skills during the same activities every day. This created what experts now call contextual memory. The physical places and regular routines become signals that automatically help you remember your language knowledge. The third secret: high-stakes practice. This might be the most powerful Viking secret of all. Vikings learned languages under real pressure with real consequences. When a Viking trader negotiated for essential supplies, he could not afford mistakes. When a Viking diplomat prevented a war through careful words, every phrase mattered. This high-stakes environment accelerated learning in ways that safe classroom practice never could. When you really need to communicate, your brain works much harder and faster. It forces you to pay complete attention. You cannot be lazy or easily distracted. This creates the perfect mental state for quick learning. Modern language learners often avoid this kind of pressure. They prefer safe, comfortable practice where mistakes do not matter. But comfort is the enemy of growth. Vikings understood this instinctively. They threw themselves into situations where they had to communicate or face serious consequences. You can create your own high-stakes English practice without actual danger. Volunteer to give presentations in English at work. Join English-speaking clubs where you must contribute to conversations. Book trips to English-speaking countries where you cannot rely on your native language. Sign up for English job interviews, even if you are not looking for a new position. The goal is to create situations where English success truly matters to you personally. When something important depends on your English skills, your brain switches into high-performance mode. This is when real breakthroughs happen. Today's phrase comes directly from Viking culture and perfectly captures their approach to language learning. The phrase is "strike while the iron is hot." This expression means to take advantage of an opportunity when conditions are perfect for success. Vikings used this principle constantly in language learning. When they encountered native speakers, they did not wait for perfect conditions or complete preparation. They struck immediately. They engaged in conversation, asked questions, made mistakes, and learned rapidly through direct interaction. For your English learning, this phrase reminds you to seize every opportunity for practice. When you meet an English speaker, strike while the iron is hot. Start a conversation. When you feel motivated to study, do not wait until tomorrow. Strike while the iron is hot. When you find interesting English content, consume it immediately. Strike while the iron is hot. This phrase also teaches us about timing in language learning. There are moments when your brain is particularly receptive to new information. Maybe you just had a great English conversation. Maybe you understood a difficult movie scene. These are your hot iron moments. Use them for additional study and practice. Remember, the iron cools quickly. Motivation fades. Opportunities pass. But when you develop the Viking habit of striking while the iron is hot, you transform every good moment into accelerated learning. The Viking approach to language learning reveals a profound truth. The most effective methods are often the oldest and simplest. While we have been chasing the latest apps and technologies, the real secrets have been hiding in plain sight for over 1,000 years. Think about your current English learning routine. How much of it involves passive consumption versus active engagement? How often do you challenge yourself with high-stakes practice? How frequently do you connect your learning to stories and physical experiences? Vikings succeeded because they made language learning urgent, social, and meaningful. They did not separate learning from living. Language was not a subject to study, but a tool for achieving their dreams of exploration, trade, and adventure. Here is your Viking challenge for the next week. Choose one area where you can apply high-stakes practice. Maybe it is ordering food in English at a restaurant. Maybe it is calling customer service in English instead of your native language. Maybe it is commenting on English videos or joining English online discussions. The goal is not perfection. Vikings made countless mistakes while learning. The goal is courage and engagement. Every time you push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you honor the Viking tradition of bold learning. Remember, Vikings did not learn languages to pass tests or get certificates. They learned to expand their world, to connect with new people, to seize opportunities that others could not even imagine. What opportunities is English going to create for you? As we reach the end of today's journey into Viking wisdom, remember that you now possess secrets that have proven their power across centuries. These are not theories or experiments. These are battle-tested methods that helped ordinary people achieve extraordinary communication abilities. The Vikings proved that effective language learning does not require expensive tools or complex systems. It requires the courage to engage deeply, the wisdom to learn through stories, and the determination to practice under pressure. Your English learning journey is not so different from a Viking voyage. Both require courage to leave familiar shores, wisdom to navigate unknown waters, and persistence to reach distant goals. The Vikings who mastered multiple languages were not special people with special gifts. They were ordinary humans who used extraordinary methods. These methods are now yours. Use them wisely. Use them boldly. Use them consistently. Most importantly, use them starting today. Thank you for joining Coffee English on this adventure into ancient wisdom and modern application. If this episode sparked new ideas for your learning journey, share it with someone who needs to hear these Viking secrets. Subscribe for more episodes that uncover the hidden truths about language mastery. Your Viking adventure in English learning begins now. Strike while the iron is hot, embrace the power of stories, and never forget that the greatest discoveries often come from the oldest wisdom. Until our next episode, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing beyond the limits of what you thought possible. The Vikings believed that bold action creates extraordinary results. Now it is your turn to prove them right.